Israeli forces rescued 2 hostages in dramatic Gaza raid that killed at least 67 Palestinians. Egypt is threatening to void its decades-old peace treaty with Israel. What does that mean? Trump asks Supreme Court to put off his election interference trial, claiming immunity. Today is Monday, February 13th, 2024, and this is the Dunkley Report. Israeli forces rescued 2 hostages after storming a heavily guarded apartment in a densely packed town in the Gaza Strip and extracting them under fire. Local officials say at least 67 Palestinians were killed in the operation early Monday, most of them in airstrikes. The rescue in Rafah briefly lifted the spirits of Israelis, shaken by the plight of the dozens of hostages held by Hamas. Israel has described Rafah as the last remaining Hamas stronghold in the territory and signaled that it may soon target the town on the southern edge of Gaza. More than half of Gaza's population of 2.3 million have fled to Rafah to escape fighting elsewhere. Egypt has threatened to void its decades-long peace treaty with Israel if it begins a large-scale offensive against Rafah, where some 1.4 million Palestinians are sheltering in densely packed tent camps on the border with Egypt. The landmark treaty took shape during the Camp David Accords, brokered by U.S. President Jimmy Carter. It was the first time an Arab country recognized Israel. If the treaty is nullified, it may have serious ramifications for Israel, which has relied since its signing on calm along its southern border. Former President Donald Trump is asking the Supreme Court to extend the delay in his election interference trial and ultimately find him immune from prosecution on charges he plotted to overturn his 2020 election loss. His lawyers filed an emergency appeal with the court on Monday, just 4 days after the justices heard Trump's separate appeal to remain on the presidential ballot. The filing keeps on hold what would be a landmark criminal trial of a former president, while the nation's highest court decides what to do. The Supreme Court's decision and how quickly it acts could determine whether Trump stands trial in the case before the November election. Donald Trump says he once warned that he would allow Russia to do whatever it wants to NATO member nations that are delinquent in devoting 2% of their gross domestic product to defense. Trump's comment on Saturday represented the latest instance in which the former president and Republican frontrunner seemed to side with an authoritarian state over America's democratic allies. NATO members don't pay to belong and don't owe the organization anything other than contributions to a largely administrative fund. Trump's frequent complaint has been how much NATO countries put into their own military budgets. The 2% is a voluntary benchmark, and no debt or delinquency is involved. Robert Kennedy Jr.'s presidential ambitions resulted in public family drama after a political action committee aired a Super Bowl ad invoking the Democratic family's legacy to implicitly compare the independent candidate to his assassinated uncle, President John F. Kennedy. The 30-second spot was financed by the American Values 2024 Super PAC, that is backing Kennedy. The ad featured a shortened version of a campaign song that the 35th president used in his 1960 campaign. The spot also mimicked cartoon and newsreel effects using black and white pictures of Robert Kennedy Jr., similar to his uncle. One of Robert Kennedy's cousins blasted him for the spot. In a statement on social media, Kennedy apologized to any of his family members who were upset by the ad. The weekend shooting at the Lakewood megachurch in Houston is not the first time gunfire has caused tragedy at a Texas house of worship. The Sunday shooting left the shooter dead and 2 others wounded. It also underscores the ease of bringing weapons into sanctuaries in a state that has few limits on gun possession. Some churches are also making efforts to provide armed security. Texas does not require a license to carry a handgun or a rifle. State law sets a handgun minimum age requirement at 21. Texas has also been an open carry state since 2015. President Joe Biden has welcomed Jordan's King Abdullah II to the White House for talks on how to end the months-long war in Gaza and plan for what comes afterward. Standing alongside the king, Biden said that the key elements of the deal are on the table, though gaps remain. The two leaders discussed the effort to free hostages in Gaza and the growing concern over a possible Israeli military operation in the border city of Rafah. Monday's meeting is the first between the allies since 3 American troops were killed last month in a drone strike against a U.S. base in Jordan. Biden blamed Iran-backed militias for the fatalities. Carnival dancers have taken the biggest stage in Rio de Janeiro to pay tribute to Brazil's largest indigenous group and pressure President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva to deliver on promises to eradicate illegal mining. Carnival has long been a platform for samba schools to protest. Participants marched through the Samba-drome on Sunday evening, delivering their message to more than 70,000 revelers and millions watching live on television. A year ago, Lula declared a public health emergency for the Yanomami group in the Amazon. They suffer from malnutrition and diseases such as malaria as a consequence of illegal mining. The governments of Poland, France, and Germany are vowing to make Europe a security and defense power with a greater ability to back Ukraine. The foreign ministers of the 3 countries met in a Paris suburb on Monday for about Ukraine and other issues. They discussed reviving the so-called Weimar Triangle, a regional grouping designed to promote cooperation between France, Germany, and Poland. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk also met with French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Berlin on Monday. The diplomatic push came as fears grow that former U.S. President Donald Trump might return to the White House and allow Russia to expand its aggression on the continent. The Kansas City Chiefs beat the San Francisco 49ers 25-22 in overtime in a Super Bowl unlike any other. Several topics will linger in the aftermath. Those include where this pulsating game ranks among the classics, and where the Chiefs rank among the game's great dynasties. Then there's Patrick Mahomes. The Kansas City quarterback's resume might be even better than Tom Brady's was when Brady was this age. Taylor Swift made this game even more memorable with her appearance to cheer on boyfriend Travis Kelce and the Chiefs. And the site was also unique. Las Vegas hosted for the first time. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the International News for Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. Thanks again for joining us here at the Dunkley Report.